You know that friend who has zero photos on Instagram? No beach selfies, no birthday posts, no look at my life updates, nothing. While everyone else is documenting every meal, every outfit, every moment, they're just silent. And maybe you've wondered, are they insecure, antisocial, hiding something? Here's what psychology actually says. These people might be the most emotionally intelligent ones in the room. And today, I'm going to show you why the people who post the least often understand life the most. I'm Luke, and on this channel, we don't just observe behavior. We dissect the mind behind it. Let's dive in. Number 1. They've mastered the privacy paradox. Here's something fascinating. In 2024, researchers at Stanford found that people with high privacy orientation score significantly higher on tests measuring life satisfaction and self-reliance. Think about it. While most people are building a highlight reel for strangers, these individuals are protecting something more valuable, their mental bandwidth. See, every time you post a photo, your brain subconsciously waits for validation. You check the likes, you read the comments, you measure your worth by the reactions. Psychologists call this external validation dependency, and it's exhausting. But people who don't post? They've disconnected their self-worth from public approval. They're not antisocial. They're not hiding. They're simply refusing to let algorithms dictate how they feel about themselves. This is what Dr. Larry Rosen, a psychology professor at California State University, calls selective digital engagement. They engage on their terms, not society's. And here's the kicker. Studies show these people report lower anxiety, better focus, and stronger real-world relationships because they're not performing their life. They're actually living it. The psychology, they understand that true privacy isn't about secrecy. It's about autonomy. They control the narrative, not the audience. Number 2. They have unshakable self-concept clarity. Let me ask you something. Who are you when no one's watching? Most people struggle with that question. Why? Because social media has taught them to define themselves through other people's eyes. But people who don't post their photos? They've answered that question definitively. There's a psychological concept called self-concept clarity, developed by Dr. Jennifer Campbell. It measures how clearly and confidently someone understands their own identity. And guess what? People who share less online consistently score higher on this metric. Think about it. When you're constantly posting, you're constantly adjusting, you're curating, you're editing yourself based on what gets engagement. Your identity becomes a product. But when you step back from that cycle, something powerful happens. You stop asking, what will people think, and start asking, what do I actually value? These individuals know their strengths, their flaws, their goals, and their boundaries. They don't need to announce a new hobby for it to be real. They don't need to post a selfie to feel attractive. Their sense of self exists independently of social validation. Real-world example. A study from the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology found that people who reduced social media use by just 30 minutes a day showed significant improvements in self-acceptance and authenticity. Why? Because they stopped performing and started being. The psychology. When your identity isn't shaped by engagement metrics, it becomes solid, unshakable, real. Number 3. They operate from secure self-esteem. There are 2 types of self-esteem, fragile and secure. Fragile self-esteem is like a house of cards. It needs constant reinforcement. Every like is a support beam. Every comment is validation that you matter. Secure self-esteem, that's a fortress. It doesn't need external props. Psychologist Dr. Michael Kernis describes secure self-esteem as true self-esteem that's stable, authentic, and not dependent on external validation. People who don't post their photos typically have this. Here's why. They're not seeking approval because they've already approved of themselves. They don't need 200 likes to feel attractive. They don't need comments to feel interesting. Their worth isn't negotiable or performance-based. And here's where it gets interesting. Research from the University of Pennsylvania found that people with secure self-esteem are less likely to experience social anxiety, depression, and comparison fatigue. Why? Because they're not in the competition. While everyone else is racing for digital validation, they've opted out entirely. Think about this. When was the last time you posted something and didn't check how it performed? For most people, that's almost impossible. The checking becomes compulsive. But people who don't post? They've broken that dopamine loop entirely. They're free. The psychology. Secure self-esteem means you don't need to prove anything. Your value isn't up for debate, and that creates a kind of emotional freedom most people never experience. Number 4. They have a powerful internal locus of evaluation. This is one of the most important psychological concepts you'll ever learn. Locus of evaluation refers to where you place the authority to judge yourself. Most people have an external locus of evaluation. They judge themselves based on what others think. Likes, comments, shares, reactions become the scorecard for their life. But people who don't post, they have an internal locus of evaluation. This concept comes from psychologist Carl Rogers, and it's a marker of psychological maturity. Here's what it means in practice. They judge themselves by their own standards, not society's. They don't post about their achievements to make them real. They don't share their relationships to prove they're happy. They don't document their life for validation. Example. While someone with an external locus thinks I'll feel accomplished when people congratulate me, someone with an internal locus thinks I feel accomplished because I achieved my personal goal. See the difference? This makes them deeply introspective. They think more, react less. They process their experiences internally rather than immediately externalizing them for an audience. And this leads to something fascinating: authentic communication. Studies show that people who post less tend to have deeper, more meaningful conversations. Why? Because they're not performing. They're not crafting a persona. When they share something, it's genuine, not strategic. The psychology. When you judge yourself by your own standards, you become immune to the fickleness of public opinion. You become truly free. Number 5. They've decoded the digital illusion. Here's something most people don't realize. Social media is a psychological trap designed to exploit your insecurities. But people who don't post, they see through it. They understand what psychologist Leon Festinger called social comparison theory, the idea that we constantly evaluate ourselves by comparing ourselves to others. And social media is comparison on steroids. You're not just comparing yourself to your peers, you're comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. You're measuring your messy Monday against someone's perfect vacation, your regular face against someone's filtered selfie, your normal life against everyone's best moments. This creates what psychologists call comparison fatigue, a state of chronic inadequacy where you never feel quite good enough. But people who don't post have opted out of this game entirely. Here's the reality they understand. Every photo is curated, every post is edited, every smile might be hiding something. The digital world is a performance, not reality. By staying low-key, they protect their mental health. They're not constantly measuring themselves against impossible standards. Research from the Royal Society for Public Health found that Instagram is the worst social media platform for mental health, primarily due to comparison and inadequacy feelings. People who don't post, they've protected themselves from that entirely. Deeper insight. They also understand the concept of digital permanence. Everything you post becomes part of your permanent digital footprint. These individuals value the freedom to change, grow, and evolve without their past selves being constantly on display. The psychology. When you stop performing your life for an audience, you start actually living it. You trade performance anxiety for peace. So here's what we've learned. People who don't post their photos aren't antisocial, insecure, or hiding. They're often the exact opposite. They're individuals who've achieved something most people are chasing: genuine self-acceptance. They don't need to be seen to feel seen. They don't need validation to feel valid. They don't need to perform to feel worthy. They've built their identity on internal foundations rather than external feedback. And in a world obsessed with attention, that's revolutionary. But here's the real question. What about you? You don't have to delete your social media, but maybe ask yourself, am I posting because I want to or because I need to? Am I sharing my life or performing it? The people we discussed today have found something rare: freedom from the need to prove themselves. And that's a kind of confidence that can't be measured in likes. If this video made you think differently about social media behavior, hit that subscribe button right now. Because here on Luke the Man, we don't just scroll through content. We decode the psychology behind everything you see. Drop a comment and tell me, are you someone who rarely posts? Or are you realizing you might be posting for the wrong reasons? Let's talk about it. Until next time, stay curious, stay authentic, and remember, the most interesting people aren't always the most visible ones. I'm Luke the Man, and I'll see you in the next one.